Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Jack Wagon Sports Podcast here on Jack Wagon's network. Um, yeah, I don't know why I said network, but anyway,
It sounds
um,
good.
yeah, it
Sounds
does.
professional. I like it.
High
We
aspirations.
we had to take a week break because some jackass decided to get married, and so we were busy doing all the festivities there. But we're back. We're well rested, little hungover, but that never stopped us before. So let's get right into it.
Hold on,
Uh,
before we get into the topics
Go
here,
ahead.
I think we mentioned it. I'm not 100% sure, but if we didn't, whatever. But Slade was the winner of the what is it?
Oh,
The
we did
Koch
not. Yeah,
Pickup.
where's the trophy? The trophy's supposed to be
Yeah.
displayed behind you.
It's in the car.
He
Oh
hasn't
my
even got it out
God.
of the cart. What an ass.
Wow.
Mm,
He
Yeah,
had to
it
win it in
sits in
mini
the
golf.
it sits in the passenger seat. It's buckled in.
yeah, it's a
He-
fluke championship because he had to win it in mini golf.
they were tied after the front nine. We had to rush the back nine.
Yeah, and we still didn't get to finish it
Yeah.
because we are terrible at time management.
Oh yeah.
But, I mean, I don't think anybody else would have guessed otherwise. Anyway, let's jump right in. Nick, you have the first topic written down here. Why don't you intro it for us and let's discuss it.
Yes, sir. So, first question for you boys, and me, I guess. So how do you think your team did in the NFL draft, and who was your favorite pick out of the draft? It can be either your team or if you really like to pick that somebody else
I'll go first since Slade's still trying to make up his mind on his NFL team.
made.
So, as a Bears fan, personally, I would give them an A plus. Now, realistically, A minus, but I don't think A is out of the question. Um, it's so weird to have a competent GM that goes out and gets what the team needed. He picked up some really good secondary players. We got another good wide receiver, and Luce Jones Jr. out of Tennessee. Just torched a lot of the SEC secondaries this year, so I'm really excited to see him on our offense, especially with him and Justin Fields, Darnell Mooney, and David Montgomery in the backfield. I think we have the potential to have a really good offense. There goes Hannah. Um, but the biggest thing was we needed offensive linemen badly. Like that has been our thing for years. We tried to get a couple in free agency this year. It didn't work out. Um, Now I haven't watched a lot of film on the guys. I mean, the draft was going on as the wedding was going on, so we didn't get to see much of round two. Um, but over, I was just very glad that we took draft picks that are offensive linemen. Um, and I feel like once in a while you get like a star standout lineman like a Joe Thomas or Taylor Lewan or somebody like that. But 9 times out of 10, your solid offensive line is going to be built on those depth guys that you get later on in the draft, which is a lot of what we got. So I'm really excited that we at least tried to bolster it, and we'll see how it works out. So yeah, personally, again, I just because we actually drafted what we needed for once, uh, I'm gonna say A plus. I think the best team in the draft would either be the Jets or the Eagles. The Eagles made some really big trades, but they also took a lot of positions they needed. Now,
Eagles definitely had a great draft.
yeah, to be fair, trading for AJ Brown is great, but can Jalen Hurts throw him the ball? I mean, the Eagles
I
have
had a
had
buddy of mine text me and he was like, "How long do you think Brown's yelling at Hurts on the sideline?" And I
yeah,
was like, "I'm gonna give it week 9, but only because the defense is gonna hold the morale of the team up."
yeah. But I mean, worst comes to worst. I mean, I believe they still have Minshew, or was he a free agent this year? Either way,
I think they still have him.
if they still have him next year, that would be huge because then they do have somebody that can get in there and sling the ball around. So that's an interesting storyline to watch next year or this upcoming year for them. But the Jets, giving their fans a glimmer of hope, making really smart draft choices for once. So yeah, I give those two the win for the draft. But I'll stop talking about my team and I'll let Slade go.
That's all right. You had a lot of good information of not just the Bears, but the other top players. I think that for the Steelers, I mean, they're the team that I watched the most. I was really surprised to see them draft Kenny Pickett in the first round, especially because they had just picked up Mitchell Trubisky on like a $5 million 1 year deal or whatever. So like, I'm kind of confused as to whether they plan to kind of like hope that Kenny Pickett takes this year to get better, or is he like going in like vying for the starting job against Trubisky first year. I'm just kind of confused on that pick there. I mean, other than that, I think that they needed a lot of help at the line also because I think that with Ben retiring, they had a couple of guys that are getting ready to just call it quits also.
Yeah, I mean, going in, it was definitely well known that they needed help on the O line. Kind of surprised they didn't go more so towards that. I mean, they did make some pretty good acquisitions. I will say, yeah, the Kenny Pickett, like jokingly, we talked about, at the end of the college football season, Nick and I, when we had the old show, was we knew, like we said, Kenny Pickett would be a great fit in Pittsburgh, and even after Trubisky signed there, um, I still believe it. I was just surprised he was the first quarterback taken off the board. That
Yeah,
was
that
the,
was
the
a
thing
big
that
shock.
stood out the most to me. I thought a lot of other teams needed help at that position before Pittsburgh. Um, but at the end of the day, I still think it's a good decision for Pittsburgh because listen, they're bringing Money Mitch in, and he's trying to prove that he is a starting quarterback in the NFL, which I personally 100% believe he is. I don't think he got a fair shake in Chicago, and he literally carried our team to the playoffs twice. Um, if it wasn't for a shitty head coach, we probably would have done a lot better. So I do believe he's a high caliber starting QB. I'm not gonna say he's a top tier. He's not up there with Patty Mahomes and stuff like that, but he has the potential to be. So if an offense can build around him, and he will have some really good wide receiver talent this year with Claypool. I believe they signed a couple others. I think they just drafted one. Um, I'm excited for him, but it does make sense because in the long run, if that does not work out, hey, we need somebody to come in that can be our franchise QB. A lot of people are saying Pickett's going to start by like week 8. I don't. I see Trubisky starting all season, but he's on a 2-year deal. If he plays really good this year, hey, Pickett will sit another year behind him, and at the end of that, they can reevaluate. If say he goes out there and wins in the Super Bowl, I don't think they're not going to re-sign Trubisky. So to create interesting storylines going down, seeing depending on how successful he is. But if Trubisky goes out there and has a really rough year, more than likely Pickett will start next year. Trubisky will back him up. But at the end of the day, they wanted somebody that could be the face of their franchise, and they have at least 2 options going forward because Rudolph definitely wasn't going to get it done. I don't care how many chances he gets.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I would have liked to have seen the Steelers draft a little more heavily on the offensive line. But again, I think they did just fine, and I think I mean, I put a $5 bet on them. This was right after they signed Mitch to win the AFC North this year, so that'll be interesting to see how that backfires on me. But um, Nick, if you have any thoughts on that, go ahead. But otherwise, it's up to you to tell us all about the communists down there in DC.
Yeah. Just to touch on the Steelers a little bit. And the
Yeah,
Bears did
I bet
a
you
good
would.
job.
You would touch on the Steelers.
I would unpick it. Have you seen his hair?
I would touch on Trubisky.
Well, that's fair. I let him kiss my face. But nonetheless, um, like you said, we had talked about it. I had a feeling Pickett was going there. I didn't quite think he was going there that early, but
Agreed.
nonetheless, your boys out there, you go get them. I think he's a great
I,
fit in
I think
Pittsburgh.
it was more of a shock. Like they were sitting there, like they were probably jokingly saying, like, "Oh, if Pickett follows us, we're gonna take him."
Exactly.
And then they sat there like, "Oh shit, he's still here!" Like, "Oh shit, now we gotta take him."
Yeah,
But yeah, again, like I said, it was just very surprising that he was the first QB take, and that like, there was a lot of talk about Willis coming out of the combine, especially like he's gonna be the first QB taken, and how far he fell really didn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, just overall very surprising that Pickett ended up being the first QB taken.
yeah, definitely. And as far as Washington goes, I honestly feel like we did great. Being on fan pages on Facebook and shit, you see a bunch of people that have no idea what they're talking about, and they're like, "Oh, this, and this." And I will admit that I can't sit here and deny that a lot of the picks, especially the first 4, were considered reaches, which
Mhm.
is understandable. So based on that, I gave the draft a B plus. But overall, as far as having a game plan going into the draft and being able to execute that game plan, it, it no question about it, it was an A plus. I was actually reading an article. I don't remember who had wrote it, but they were talking about how it was very clear that Ron had a plan going into the draft. And reading this, it kind of enlightened me a little more to how good we actually did. Um, Ron even talked about it in the press conference afterwards. He had one goal, and that was get players who can contribute immediately. And the
Yeah.
first 4 picks, obvious contributors. Dotson, even though people thought we reached for him, as a Penn State
Which
fan,
I'm not even a Penn State fan, and I disagree with that. The shit he did, especially this year,
yeah,
like if you think about that Ohio State game, no,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I was
I
explaining
don't
to
see
my
that.
boy, I was like, he was like, oh, I think it was a bit of a reach. I was like, think of it this way: Penn State had no run game, and while Parker Washington, the wide receiver 2 for Penn State, is definitely good, and I think will do just fine now. Teams basically like to compare it to Washington, he was our Terry McLaurin. Like,
Mhm.
teams could sit there and say the ball is going to go to this guy. Now obviously Gibson helped out a little bit last year, but nonetheless, and he still proceeded to produce. I want to say he had 5 drops his entire college career,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. Um, does not drop the ball. He's got insane speed, um, great route running. The route running, is obviously, you could have bad hands, you could have bad speed, whatever. If you can run routes efficiently, you're going to get open even in the NFL. So I think that was great.
And that's
Um,
from catching balls from Sean Clifford the last 2 years.
yeah, exactly,
Exactly.
exactly. We had Mathis, who's gonna come off the bench at least this year, depending on how things go with the Duran Payne negotiations. That could vary next year, but he's gonna come off the bench, which still is gonna equal about 50% of his of the defensive snaps. So again, production. Um, and he was a captain at Bama, so that's always good. Robinson Jr., the running back. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I have something else. So
Oh,
finish
okay.
your thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah. Robinson Jr., the running back we picked up, a change of pace for sure. Gibson is definitely more elusive, and obviously J.D. McKissick is more of a pass catcher. He can line up and run, but that gives us the short yardage, the um, goal line, all that stuff, and it'll help keep Gibson's and McKissick's legs fresher.
Mhm.
So again, he can contribute. And Butler, our 4th pick, the safety, he's a standout on special teams, even if he doesn't necessarily play snaps on defense, which Ron seems to think that he's going to contribute on defense too. He'll be making plays on special teams. So again, top 4 that we picked, contributing early, and then that's not to mention picking up Sam Howell with the first pick in the 5th round. You know, a couple months ago, he was up there with the talk of Kenny Pickett possibly being a first-round pick, and here we are drafting him in the 5th round. Um, I don't think he's going to end up being a Tom Brady, or he's definitely
No.
not like an Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. But if he can learn from Wentz and Heineke's got a good brain. He has limitations as far as like his arm strength and stuff, but he's got a good brain. If he can sit there and learn, I definitely think that's somebody that we could use as our franchise quarterback. Again, no Tom Brady, but be able to make throws. He loves slinging the ball down the field. We have the speed to do it.
Mhm.
So that was my favorite pick in the draft was Sam Howell, first pick in the 5th round, um, by far.
So I just have to. Who's your tight end at Washington?
Logan Thomas.
Yeah. So this is Wentz's year to put up or shut up. So like the past few years, the stigma around him is like he's not that good, but he has had 0 weapons. Like in Indy, he had Pittman Jr. and he had Thomas to carry the ball. Like he had one weapon, and Pittman got hurt a couple times. Um, so this is the first year he's going in where he has legitimate weapons all around him, especially with
Yeah.
Dotson coming in now.
If he
Gibson
can't
in the
do it now,
backfield.
like, and if
Exactly.
Samuel's healthy, like, first of all, our wide receiver core is probably at
I would
least
put it up
top
as one of the
3.
best. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
fastest in the league, let alone skill level. Like,
Yeah. So yeah, this is Wentz's year to put up a shut up. But Sam Howell, I would put in the same category as Mitch. I mean, obviously they came from UNC both, but he has the ability to get up into the upper echelon. Now, like you said, I don't think he's ever going to become like a Tom Brady or an Aaron Rodgers. But the way the NFL is going, that's not who you need.
yeah,
Running the ball anymore. Um, you just need somebody who can make the right decisions, and then let your running back, let your wide receivers carry you, to that upper
yeah.
echelon. And then at the end of the day, your defense is what's been winning the
Which, as
championships
far as
lately.
game plan, is what Ron wants to do. Ron wants to, tough, good defense, run the ball, make passes when you need to.
Yeah.
You know,
And I have seen Sam play in person, and listen, again, not the highest high tier talent, but he can still do some great things with the ball, and he's still gonna be a lot of fun to watch.
And his
Um,
production last year was lowered, but like
mhm,
his entire team around him went to shit. Like,
yeah. I feel like once they lost that Virginia Tech game, they kind of like, oh well, shit, well, might as well pack it in.
yeah.
Um, but then my last thought, is, and you were saying like, a lot of people are like, oh, kind of reached a little bit, but I'd rather sit there and be like, we reached a little bit, but we filled our needs rather than being like, oh shit, we reached and
Yeah.
hey, we just signed a quarterback and we don't need like
Yeah.
in that
Like I
situation.
seen a
I
picture that put
Hey,
it into
hey,
great
hey.
perspective.
No, you guys needed the QB though. You did.
But this picture put it in this perspective, and it basically broke it down like the trade would have looked, but instead of the draft picks it showed. So basically, we traded, say, Chris Olave for Jahan Dotson, um, Cole Turner, I guess Mathis. No, Mathis was our second round pick. So Robinson Jr. and I forget who the other one. Oh, and Sam Howe basically is what we turned those picks into. So I'd trade Chris Olave for those four players any day of the
Yeah.
week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not, and that's no knock on Olave. Like I would have
No,
gladly
no.
taken him too, but
Yeah. Um, but okay, enough time on the draft. We will have to see how those picks work out come fall. Moving on, Nick, to you again. Tee us off here.
yes. So there we go. So with the first round of the NBA playoffs over, I want to know who is you guys' pick for NBA champion as it sits right now.
Slade, out. You go first this time.
So I got into basketball about the time that the Warriors started doing good. So I consider myself a bandwagon person when it comes to basketball. But I think that now that they've got Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, Steph Curry, they've got a really solid team to be able to make a really deep run in the playoffs here. I think
Mhm.
right now the team that I'm worried about the most is the Celtics.
Yeah.
But
Which I mean, they did lose a little bit of depth last night with Gary Payton going down. That was a scary fall.
yeah,
Um,
Steve Kerr said that that was a against the unwritten rule
yeah, and I mean, if it was a little too rough.
in the
But
first quarter.
yeah.
Yeah.
But moving on to my pick in the West, I still will take um the Warriors. Like you said, I just think they probably have the best overall team. Um, I really don't see anybody challenging him too much. Now, I maybe as the Western Conference Finals go to Game 7 at least with the Suns. Um, but it just seems like that. I mean, the Suns will build a little bit of momentum, and then they'll just come out and play like shit one night. And like if you do that against the
Fuck
Warriors,
you,
like
Chris Paul.
they're gonna be pushing you to the edge every single night. And if you play like shit one night, they're gonna dog you by 30. And I just don't see a team mentally recovering by that or from that. So in the West, I'm gonna take the Warriors. In the East, after game one of the second round, I was going to say Bucks, but after game two, I really don't know. So that series decides the Eastern Conference. Um, I think after the bounce back they had, I'm going to take the Celtics. But I think that's going to go 7. That's going to be a slugfest, and then it's the Heat and who else in the
That
East?
Philly team.
Oh yeah, well yeah, well they can both just go.
Yeah.
I mean, I want the Heat to win because fuck Philly, but um, I mean if they can be
Speaking of, real
healthy and
quick,
yeah, go ahead.
the I don't know what she's called, but the woman that was doing the ceremony for George and Hannah's wedding
Oh, the
wedding,
officiant.
the officiant, yeah, there we go. Couldn't think of the word. Happened to mention Philly in her like spiel,
Yeah.
and I mumbled under my breath, as the best man standing like 2 feet behind George. Fuck Philly,
Yeah.
because that's how bad it's. Fuck
Come on,
Yes.
Greg.
Philly. Come on, Greg.
So yeah. And then out of those two, I don't know, I think I might actually watch the NBA finals for once. Um, but I, just because biasly, I would probably take Boston.
Yeah. I actually agree perfectly with you here, George. My pick at the moment is the Celtics. Um, but really, I think it's whoever comes out of this series, between the Celtics and the Bucks. Uh, you know, the Celtics are playing great defense. They're scoring efficiently, and overall, they look like the team that's hungriest to win. Um, but on the same side, if the Warriors catch that Warriors heat, especially like they like to do in the playoffs, that is, even with the Celtics playing great defense, or the Bucks for that matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter how great a defense you play. When the Warriors are hot, they're hot. So, um, Yeah, I definitely, like I said, agree wholeheartedly with everything you said.
Yeah, I mean, either way, like I said, I've actually been like checking the scores every once in a while, like, oh, hey, what's going on? Um, so it's actually got me interested for once, which is super weird. Um, but I'm definitely intrigued, and I have enjoyed watching some of the games. I was the biggest thing, and I'm getting ready to switch TV providers because I'm over it at this point. But I don't have TNT right now, so I couldn't watch March
Oh
Madness,
man.
and then now half of the hockey playoffs are on TNT, and half of the NBA playoffs are on TNT. I was like, I just need TNT at this point, so I'm getting ready to switch, and it's frustrating. Um, so there's our picks. So I'm going Celtics. Slade's going Warriors. You're going Celtics, Nick.
Yes, Celtics.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Speaking of the playoffs, the NHL has started their playoffs. We are into the first round now. Game twos are going on right now. Uh, so every series has had their first game. Nick, you are the new fan to hockey. Well, we're trying to get Slade into it too.
He's working
But
on it.
yeah, you were more involved in the hockey now. So give me your thoughts on the playoffs so far. You know, are you enjoying it? And your picks for this round? Just because I feel like this is, as somebody who's watched playoff for like years now in the NHL, I really do feel like this is one of the more unpredictable years, at least in the East. I think the West is all but decided, especially after last night. But your thoughts and your first round picks.
Yeah, so to put it in a word, wow. I've been hearing for months since I started watching hockey. Every time I text George excited about something, or anybody that watches hockey for that matter, they're like, just wait for the playoffs, just wait for the playoffs. And if this is what the playoffs look like every year, my God. I mean, we're talking two shutouts in the first night, triple overtime in the second night. Not to mention, we talked about it a little before the show. Shesterkin, 70 saves and still gave up 4 goals and lost. I, I I couldn't imagine, but nonetheless, it has been wild so far. Um, I can't wait to see what else happens, especially as we get closer to the Stanley Cup Finals. My picks for this round. So I got the Hurricanes, unfortunately the Leafs. Um, uh, I watched not a whole lot of that game because I went to bed, but every single game in Toronto is going to be ridiculous. Those fans, especially, I believe I texted you because you would flip games during that 5 minute penalty kill, and they had like 4 good scoring opportunities, and Tampa Bay had none. The fans were just going crazy.
Yeah.
Um, the Wild, if they can figure out how to score, I know they got shut out. They know how to score, but they got to figure out how to
They
do it in the
scored one.
playoffs.
No, they did score one.
Oh, did they? Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. The Oilers, which that's going to be a good series. The Penguins, you'll be glad to see that or to hear that, I should say. I'm still that was probably my closest pick right there was the Penguins and Rangers because I
Yeah.
did pick the Rangers as my dark horse team, but nonetheless, the Panthers, Avalanche, and I had the Flames, but that could go very drastically in the wrong direction.
All right, Slade. Have you watched any playoff hockey yet? What are your thoughts? And do you have any picks?
All
We
right,
we've
so I
Hold on, real
haven't
quick.
gotten a chance.
We got Slade to play NHL for the first time the other day, and I think he was
Yes,
getting
we
ready
did.
to throw his controller through the TV. So he's on the right track.
Yeah, I didn't quite know the controls, but I'm getting there. So I kind of agree with Nick with a couple of these. I think that all season, just hearing you guys and seeing the different things that you guys are tweeting out and stuff like that, it seems like the Hurricanes, out of Carolina have a really good season this year, and they've done really good these first two games so far. I mean, they're playing right now and they're up 3-1, so they're looking to go up 2-0 in the series. And then I think that it's going to be really close between the Maple Leafs and the Lightning. I think I'm going to go with the Lightning in that series. Even though they got shut out 5-0 first game, they're up right now. I think also I'm going to go with the Wild. I know that that's a tough one because it seemed like the Blues just had the better game plan in the first game, just based on their score and their shots and everything. I know I had to learn that, the shots on goal and all that, but but yeah, I'm gonna go with the Oilers then, and then for last night's game or for last night's rounds, I'm gonna go against the Penguins, George. Unfortunately, I know
All
it's
right,
gonna.
pick
He
slate
he
out
actually
of
probably
call.
prefers you to pick
Yeah, honestly, yeah. At
the
this
other
point, yeah.
team.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll pick the Rangers, the Panthers, the Avalanche, and then I'm gonna go with the Stars.
Okay. Um. Yeah. So my thoughts, like, I love playoff hockey. The first night we sat there, and I was just watching who was it? The Hurricanes and Bruins play. I did flip back and forth a little bit between the Lightning and Maple Leafs, especially during intermissions and stuff. But Hannah was sitting there watching the game with me, and it was like middle of the second period. She goes, "Boss," or she's like, "Pittsburgh's not playing." I was like, "No." She goes, "I just saw black and gold." I was like, "No, this is a different team."
Don't you
She was
dare.
she was like, I was like, it's playoffs. Like, I need to watch. And so last night she got baptism by fire. She's just starting to watch a little bit and starting to learn. And during Penguins games, I'm not going to be very educational, and I'm screaming at the TV. There's a ton of bad calls. I mean, it went both ways, and I'll get into that in a second. Um, but like I love hockey, but like playoff hockey is just like another step up. The intensity comes out. Hopefully, Seattle makes it next year. So like, I mean, obviously, like you were seeing it and you're kind of feeling it a little bit, but like once you get to experience it as a fan yourself, it's next level.
Dude, I
Um,
couldn't imagine going through 3 overtimes in the first
yeah.
round. Like,
Like the
that's
first
insane.
overtime, I was amped. Second overtime, I was like coming down a little bit, and then the third one started. I was like, I just want to go to bed, guys. Like, but please don't make me go to bed angry. Like that kind of mentality. Like I'm just sitting there, I'm like scrolling through TikTok. I'm like,
Right.
all right.
Not to mention
Uh,
having to watch the opposite goalie make 70 saves
oh
on you.
yeah,
Like,
we were
Jesus.
just peppering the guy, and I think we hit the post literally like 10 times, and I was about to scream. But at that point, Hannah was in bed, so I couldn't. On to my picks real quick. Um, So I am going to take St. Louis for the sole reason that in game one, they did game plan a lot better, but two, Minnesota's defense was just dog shit. Like Fleury made 41 saves and ended up still giving up what 5 goals. Um, and that just all comes down to their defense. So unless they can get that fixed, they're not winning that series. And they're gonna leave the first round disappointed yet again. But again, not Fleury's fault. Um, in the Oilers Kings series, I'm taking the Kings for the pure reason that the Oilers goalie is dog shit. It's just complete opposite thing. The guy was making the dumbest plays. I think half of his turnovers led to freaking goals. Um, so I'm taking the Kings in that series again, leaving the Oilers disappointed in the first round. Uh, Also on the West, let's see who do we have. Easy one. We have the Avs Preds. After last night, if if the Avs don't sweep them, I'm going to be disappointed because it was 5-0 after one period. Um, that game was supposed to come on right after the Penguins game, and after the third period ended, they're like, "Okay, well, like we'll take you there." And like 5 seconds into the game, and they scored on the power play. I was like, "Yeah, well, this isn't going to be good." And then they showed the game for literally like 5 minutes. I looked at my watch, and they scored 3 goals. I was like, "Yeah, that's just not good." Um, so
Hate
yeah,
to see that if this is
yeah,
Tennessee.
I was like, "Oh wow," and
Which is it's a shame that Nashville pulled Colorado in the first round because
yeah.
I actually felt like they aren't a bad team.
Yeah, I think if they would have got any other team, they might have been able to at least put up a fight in the first round,
Yeah.
but maybe make it out. But yeah, I think Colorado's just a buzzsaw right now. Now, how far that they'll go into the playoffs will be interesting to watch. And in the other series, I am taking Calgary over Dallas. It's gonna be a very low scoring series compared to some of these other ones, like a 5-1, 5-0, 4-3. Um, I think that those are a lot more defensive control teams. Calgary has the ability to put up a lot of goals, but I think right now they're just trying to grind Dallas down, and I don't see a lot of goals being scored there. So those are my Western Conference picks. In the East, I am taking Carolina for the hometown bias. I really hope that they play Pittsburgh in the second round, so that way I can go to a game because like their fan base is nuts, and I desperately want to go there, especially for a playoff game. Um, they have to make a cup run. I don't care. I'm doing it. I'm Hannah can yell at me later. I'm pulling the trigger. I'm getting tickets. I'm going. Um, so I'm taking Carolina over Boston. Florida and Washington is going to go 7 games. I'm calling it now. Um, Florida had the offense last night. They just couldn't capitalize on some opportunities, and they had a couple terrible defensive turnovers. that led to goals. So but I am going to take Washington, or excuse me, I'm going to take Florida in that series. But I expect that to go the full 7 games.
This is a Washington team that 4 months ago, or not 4 months ago, 4 weeks ago, really, we thought if
Yeah, we were talking about
possible could have
Columbus or
fallen.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I mean, they have turned it on. They've been sneakily good, and they're definitely. I mean, every year in the playoffs, they are somebody to watch. So yeah, like I said, they're going to push it 7 games at least. It's going to be a great back and forth. But I have Florida taking that one. Toronto, Tampa Bay. I was all on board Toronto, especially after game one. And I just want Tampa Bay's reign to tear to end. I kind of know how people feel when we went back to back in 17, 18 now. I really hope we weren't as obnoxious. At least I wasn't.
Probably were.
I probably was. But after I sent you that video on Instagram of that Toronto fan completely dressed in gear in his basement. Yeah, no, fuck Toronto. I'm taking Tampa Bay now. For that
We
sole reason.
we were texting about it while I was watching the game the other night, and I
Like, who do we take? And we saw
Yeah.
that dirty hit. We're like, oh, maybe we should take Tampa Bay. And then we're like, you know what? No, like, they won back to back. They need to just get out of the playoffs. No. After I saw that video, no.
the only
Yeah.
reason I still have Toronto and am still rooting for
I
Toronto.
do believe Toronto will win, but after that video, I'm like, you know what? I
Yeah.
want Tampa Bay to win this series, and
even
then they can lose
yeah.
the next round.
Even though I hate like half the other people that go on the ice, I'm a big, I don't want to say a big fan, but I enjoy watching Marner play.
Yeah,
I like the way he
agreed.
plays.
Yeah.
And he's like the only thing keeping me from being like, yeah, Tampa Bay, let's go.
Yeah. See who else do we got here? I can't think. I'm just watching the games. We just talked about them all.
Got the Stars Flames, maybe?
No, I'm in the East now.
Oh,
I'm
Rangers?
saving them for last for somebody else in the middle.
You got you did the
No, I guess
Bruins and
there's
the
not.
Hurricanes,
Yeah, there's not. Okay, I got them all. So yeah,
Math is not our strong suit.
No, it is not. Penguins Rangers. I'm tired from staying up till
Rangers.
midnight last night watching that goddamn game. I am taking the Penguins, but it comes down to if this freaking goalie can keep playing. Luis Domingue can keep playing the way he did when he came in last night. So he's our third string goalie, which is very concerning. But the way our defense played from the second period on was really uplifting to watch. Normally we play like dog shit on defense, and that's what kills us. And it killed us in the first period. The team and the energy was flowing, and for some reason, when they came out to start the second period, like they got an early goal, and instead of pushing and capitalizing, they just kind of like died off. They got 2 goals is enough, and that was the end of it. But if we can take the energy, from pulling out that late win, that a lot of people didn't expect, especially like I said, after your second string goalie, who's now your starting goalie, goes down. You got to throw in a guy cold. He had no time to warm up. He literally skated off, like took his hat off, put his helmet on, skated on, and started playing goalie, and immediately faced like 3 shots. But that has to be so deflating as a Rangers player and especially a fan to sit there and be like, okay, the third string goalie's in, and you still barely get any shots on goal, and then you end up losing, and you have a goalie. I was just saying, you have a goalie who's going to win. He's my pick. He's winning the Vezina Trophy. Just that has to be like super defeating and just a huge letdown. What were we gonna say, Slade?
Do we have stats on the Pittsburgh Zamboni driver yet, or
no? So they had to just call up their AHL goalie, which I feel really bad because the AHL team came back from like 10 games back to make the playoffs, and so they're getting ready to start. So we took their goalie. Like, you guys had fun. So I kind of feel bad for them. But real quick, the last thing I want to talk about with the NHL playoffs is it's supposed to be like the top 40% of or the top 40 NHL refs. They are dog shit. One night we have a Toronto player rightfully ejected. That was a dirty hit. The next night we have a dirty hit from the Rangers on the Penguins, and originally they called it a 5-minute major. Like, okay, cool. Should have been a game misconduct in my mind, but I'll take the 5-minute power play, whatever. And then after commercial break, they come back. We're like, it's a 2-minute power play, 2-minute minor for roughing. It's like, are you fucking serious? And everybody's like, Well, he initiated the hit in his chest. I'm like, I don't give a shit about that. You can say whatever you want about that. It's the fact he left his feet and jumped into the dude after he got rid of the puck. He didn't have the puck anymore. But Ranger fans were just bitching nonstop. And I
New
can't stand them.
Yorkers.
But I think the refs were terrible both ways last night. Which I agreed. But I agree. They missed calls on both teams, but Ranger fans are going to cry. He's at least an Islander fan. I have nothing mean to say about them. But yeah, those are my picks. That's enough talking about the NHL playoffs before I get riled up here and get us off track and we don't finish this show. Moving on, we got some junior motorsports news Slade wants to tell us all about. Slade, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I know we don't really talk about the Xfinity Series much, but it's the feeder programs that end up seeing those guys race for the big names in NASCAR. I just thought it was pretty cool that Hendricks is going to basically give all the equipment to JR Motorsports for them to field a fifth car. It's just basically practice races for Byron, Larson, and Elliott throughout the season. But I just thought it was really cool that they're putting extra resources and effort into their feeder program and also just getting their drivers more practice time.
Yeah, it is good to see that. And coming into this year, Junior had 3 full-time drivers in his fourth car. He would put in like an up-and-coming driver, somebody like that. Josh Berry did such a great job last year. They gave him a full-time ride, and so that that kind of place-filling car went away. So I mean, it's definitely going to help out guys like Elliott, Larson, and Byron, and even Bowman probably too. To get a little more seat time at tracks. But I see maybe a few races too, especially there's a few times on the schedule when the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series don't follow each other around. I'm hoping those weeks it'd be really cool to see them again continue the feeder program, but from lower. Bring up some guys who are maybe up and coming talent. Hey, let's give you a shot. Go out there, run a race, and see how they do there. Again, kind of like they did with the fourth car before.
Maybe they'll give your favorite truck driver, Natalie Decker, a chance.
Please, dear God, do not. Do not. I can't say I wouldn't root for Junior's team anymore because that's just not true, but please don't do that. She tears up enough equipment and trucks. You don't want to spend that kind of money to tear up an Xfinity car. I can assure you, I could do a better job probably. Or at least if I wreck, I'm going to take out half the field and my teammate can go win. I don't know.
That's a promise.
Yeah, damn right. I'm a team player when it comes to NASCAR.
George is just like in the NASCAR game. He's driving backwards.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like, okay, you win this race. I'll drive backwards.
Yeah.
What's the worst that's gonna happen? Like, are they gonna say I can't drive NASCAR anymore? Well, no shit, I couldn't do it in the first place.
Right.
Nick, you got anything to add about that? I know you don't really. You're getting back in the NASCAR. You don't really watch Xfinity as much.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, here
as
you went to your first NASCAR race. I don't know if ever, but at least in a while. Tell us about your 67 lap experience at Dover.
yeah, so we talked about it a little before the show. I think it's the only time in my life I've seen 67 laps raced at Dover in a row. Well, there was a competition caution, but nonetheless, that
I
there
don't
wasn't.
count those.
Yeah, exactly. That there wasn't an actual caution. Um, so that was good to see. I wish I could have stayed for the whole race. I did end up watching some of it on TV on Monday. Actually, weirdly enough, so at the end of the red flag, Larson was sitting at first, and I was like, okay, he didn't have the fastest car out there. Denny Hamlin by far had the fastest car out there, um, but I was like, we got a chance. Hamlin was a couple spots back. I looked at one point when I first remembered the race was on, and I seen Larson at like 31st and a lap down, and I was like, "What the fuck?" So I was like, "Okay, he must have like spun out or wrecked or something." I go back to look at the standings after the race, and he was like 8th or some shit like that. I was like, "All right, well, I wish I would have watched the whole thing." But nonetheless, great experience. It was a great atmosphere there. Everybody was excited to be there. So definitely excited to hopefully go back next year.
Yeah. I mean, we're all hoping to go to a NASCAR race later this year. But I mean, we like we said, we touched on it briefly just before the show. The stands were on Sunday afternoon were completely packed, which is really good to see. I don't think Dover's going to go through a full resurgence where they go back to having 2 dates unless the Nashville experience completely falls apart and they decide to either scrap it or go to the National Fairgrounds that they've been talking about for years. But that'll be interesting to watch. Um, but again, really good to see them, like I said, have it bounce back, packed crowds, and then the race was a really great race too, which is again really fun to see. Moving on, um, it is NASCAR Throwback Weekend at Darlington. So real quick, uh, give me your favorite all-time scheme and your favorite scheme from this year's upcoming race. Nick, we'll let you go first.
Yes. So first up, my all-time. It's actually I didn't have to go back very far to find this. I just started scrolling through different throwback schemes, and I happened to find one from last year. So my all-time one is going to be Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and last year's. I'm not a fan of the driver, all right, but I like the car. His Tide car. I remember when I was younger. Um, you know, it would always catch your eye on the track. It didn't
Yeah,
matter who you were rooting for. It you seen that car, and that throwback that he did, I think looked better than the original car. But again, caught your eye, you noticed it,
yeah.
and I've always been a fan of bright colors. But on the contrary, for my pick for this year, uh, I'm going with the Ross Chastain #1 Coca-Cola Chevy.
Something tells me all three of us are going to pick the Trackhouse throwbacks.
The smooth black car with the white down the bottom of the sides just takes me back to a better time. Not that I was really old enough to watch back then, but nonetheless, I can remember.
Yeah. All right, Slade, your turn. Your favorite all time and your favorite this year.
So I think my favorite all time is any time that anyone throws it back to like a Darrell Waltrip orange and white car. But I can't remember who was the last. I think maybe Matt Kenseth was the last to throw it back to him, which was a while ago. But I think this year my favorite car, surprisingly, the Trackhouse cars are nice. But I think that Kyle Larson's #5. It's all white. It's a really nice Hendrix car. I don't know if you guys have gotten a chance to see it, but really nice throwback. It's like really clean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have
great
seen a
car.
picture of it. Yeah, it does look pretty good. So my all-time favorite is any of the Busch Beer throwbacks Kevin Harvick ran. I know there's a stretch there. I want to say it was 2019, 2018, 2019, where he had like the really cool old school throwbacks. 2019 actually made like limited edition cans too, and they sold them. I wanted to go down and get one because I was in Charlotte the weekend the race is going on. I ended up not though. Um, but threw it back to like the David Pearson days and the Bush series racing or Bush racing series days. So that was really always my favorite, especially you sit there and watch the race and you throw a couple Bush slates back. My favorite this year, I'm going with both of the Trackhouse cars. There's a lot I really liked. The Roush before they came out, it was going to be the Roush Fenway cars, throwing it back to Matt Kenseth and Mark Martin. But the way they did their marketing with the old school NASCAR Thunder video games and having the menu screens and like 2004 NASCAR throwback, um, that was really cool and I love that. But yeah, Trackhouse came out. The video package they put together touched you, like your uncle. But I mean, the cars look sweet. I know they had to slightly change the numbers. People are saying uh, somebody related to Dale Earnhardt, um, once married to him, was throwing a fit about the numbers, so they slightly changed
When does
one
she know?
car.
That's not
Exactly.
very raised help right there of you.
No. Um, but
Anything you
either
can
way,
do
I
to
mean, they
drag money
still
out of that name.
they still look absolutely fabulous. I'm excited to see those cars flying around. The only thing, I wish this was a Saturday night race, or if they move the throwback race back to the fall on Labor Day weekend, so it could be a night race. Because a lot of these cars, especially those Trackhouse cars, would really pop under the lights. That's just the only thing I wish. But all in all, I'm very excited to watch this race and see those cars going around the track. Um, and then Richard Petty starting the race. He's not allowed to drive the pace car this time. Last time he did that, he went off the damn track. Um, but he will start the race this time. But either way, it's always a great weekend to see. It's going to be a lot of fun. And before we move on, real quick, um, we had so on Friday I got married. It was Dale Earnhardt's birthday, and to I told Nick right before he wanted to give his best man speech that he had to end it with "Race Hail, Praise Dale," and he did. And I was the only one that yelled. At least I'm the only one that heard I yelled because I yelled pretty loud. But great moment.
I think it got the people going.
It did.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I got the party going.
got George's pants loose.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
not loose enough.
not loose enough apparently.
There's no pants in this world that can contain this amount of ass.
That's
You know,
true.
it just happens. Um,
Oh, and I did 2 days. Yeah, it was 2 days after the wedding. I was sitting in Dale Earnhardt's section at Dover.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, you
There you
were.
go.
Moving on, we skipped over golf, so we got to go back and do golf real quick.
Yeah.
I texted you guys about the lineup, and then I missed the lineup.
Yeah.
I
Um,
was just thinking about it too. I was like, damn, we really skipped over
yeah. So we had the Mexico Open this past weekend. It's the first time they played in Mexico, and I don't remember exactly how many years. But it's good to see it back on the calendar. Slade, get your thoughts first. What were your thoughts on the tournament? John Rahm, of course, is the winner. Do you think he's back at his form? Do you like him going forward this year? Your thoughts on that?
So, did you guys see any of the other stuff posted about John Rahm this past weekend?
I did not.
So there was like some random stuff going around Twitter about how John Rahm was DQ'd from a tournament because of his visa, because he's not like he wasn't born in the United States. He's
Yeah,
whatever. But
Spanish. Yeah,
so like I saw that, and then all of a sudden the next notification I get is John Rahm won the tournament. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Wait a
Like,
second here.
what kind of April Fool's joke is this? Yeah, so I don't know what that was about, but I mean I thought John Rahm played a really good tournament. I think that I hope that he keeps this up because I would really like to see more than just the one man show we've been seeing with Scotty Scheffler for the past 2 months. I mean, what did you guys think?
yeah. Nick, I'll let you go first.
Yeah. I mean, again, like hockey, I'm just starting to get into golf, but um, I think that one, it was nice to see. As I've been learning about hockey and been watching it, he's been somebody that's always had pretty high expectations going into these tournaments and hasn't always delivered. So it is good to see him finally get everything together, pull out a win. I'm not too quick to jump off the Scheffler bandwagon. I started paying attention slightly after the start of the season, so I'm not 100% sure if this is correct, but I believe I'd heard in one of the broadcasts that he had won the first like 4 out of 6. Does that sound right?
He won
He-
4 of his 6 starts. Yeah, you're right. You're
Four
right.
of his 6 starts. Okay, yeah. Which obviously is pretty damn good. But like you said, hopefully this will mean that it's not going to be the one man show anymore. Hopefully we'll actually see some competition, and obviously there's some other people out there who can put together good rounds and make it interesting. But it'd be nice to see a little more evenness as I continue to try to get in, or not continue to try, but continue to get into the sport.
Yeah. So I watched a little bit of the tournament on Saturday when we got back, and I really didn't think Rom looked that great. I think the rest of the field just honestly sucked. He was the only like big name that went down there. Um, if he wouldn't have won, I kind of would have been a little more
That's
shocked.
fair. That's fair.
But to be fair, before I left Pennsylvania on Sunday morning, I think bets on the guy that was in second and third to win. Um, but yeah, he didn't look that great. I just don't think the rest of the field looked that good. What I will say though is that course one looked beautiful, and two on Saturday they were talking about. I guess they just built that whole resort down there, and they're talking about all the stuff they're still adding to it. It kind of makes me want to go to Mexico now though. But nonetheless, I mean it was a huge confidence boost, I guess I would say for him, knowing that he could hold off challengers. I mean, listen, you're going to go to every tournament, and there's going to be at least one or two random guys that are pressuring the top guys. So I think it was at least some confidence boost, momentum builder for him to be like, okay, I can hold these guys off. We have the other three majors, coming up in quick succession here. I think the PGA Championships in 2 weeks, and then like a month after that is the U.S. Open, and the month after that's the Open. So I mean, they're going to start coming a little more frequently here, and that's when you really need to perform. So nice little tune-up for him because we've well documented this year. He has really struggled a lot. Barely making cuts, missed a few cuts too. Um, so nonetheless, anytime you win a golf tournament, it's always gonna help you out a little bit. I just don't think it's as monumental as if he would have beat, say JT was out there and he would have beat him or Spieth or something like that. Um, I put it just like a step below Spieth winning the RBC Heritage, a couple weeks ago.
It's gonna depend on how he reacts to it. And,
Right, exactly.
yeah.
But that does it for our topics. We're gonna move quick into our top five. Slade, why don't you present the top five for us this week?
Okay, so the top 5 is our top 5 bucket list racetracks that we would want to go to in our lifetime. So, which one do you guys want to go first?
Nick, why don't you go first, buddy?
All right, I'll go first. So up first at number 5, I like counting down. I think George normally does it the other way, but I like counting
No,
down.
I count down.
He
You
can't
do?
contain
Okay.
himself.
Yeah, he just wants to get it out of the way. So up first, I have Bristol at my number 5. Historic track. It has some of these tracks I picked just um, for shits and giggles, basically. But there's a 2 or 3 of them that I actually have seen and want to go to, and Bristol was one of them. Not necessarily my biggest, like, yeah, let's go there next weekend, but nonetheless, I would enjoy going there. Fourth, we have Richmond. This isn't necessarily a track that I personally would want to go watch necessarily, but again, the history behind it, you know, the respect and all that stuff. So I think it would be it kind of be like going to Madison Square Garden. Like I could give two shits about anybody that plays in Madison Square Garden, but I would love to go there for the sake of saying, yeah, I went to
Yeah.
Madison Square Garden. For my number 3, I picked
Hey,
Vegas.
hold on.
Oh,
You could
ahead.
go to Madison Square Garden when the Kraken play the Rangers.
I
There
could.
you go.
There you go. Then you would give a shit. You might
Yeah.
get booed and shit thrown at you for cheering against the Rangers, but hey, at least you
He'll
could
be the only motherfucker wearing that color.
you got
Right.
you could go and say you got the full experience.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Like I got every
Get
person in
humped
New York.
by a
pumping
hobo
shit.
in the subway.
Oh yeah, you have to, honestly, or you didn't go to New York. But for number 3, I picked Vegas. One, I think this is a cool track, but 2, this is just an excuse to go to Vegas. To be 100% honest with you. So my top 2 were actually tracks that I would love to go to. Like if I had the opportunity next week, I would go. So number 2, I picked Talladega. 1, why the fuck wouldn't you want to go? 2, again, it's a historic track. And a little change of pace, from some of the other tracks. And number 1, arguably the best track in racing as far as, what opportunities it brings with it. I picked Daytona. I know there's been some changes, but still beautiful track. Growing up, I had one of those like carpets that have the roads on them,
Oh, yeah.
and it was the Daytona one. So I always, growing up, wanted to go to Daytona. So as that's probably my most genuine pick on this list, is Daytona for number 1.
Okay. So Nick had 5 NASCAR tracks. I have 2. Um, but real quick, the only one. Well, I have 2 on here that you also have.
There were some road courses that I
Yeah.
wanted to pick, but I figured if I sat somewhere, I wouldn't be able to, like, I don't know how the seating looks at
Yeah.
those tracks. So I was like, I don't know how much race I'd see. So I don't know if I'd actually.
The only one I don't have on my list I don't want to talk about real quick is Bristol. So Slade and I both have been to the Bristol Day Race.
I want to be to Bristol Dirt.
Yeah. I would love to go to Bristol Dirt too, but I really want to go to the night race. Like if I end up not going to that Nebraska game this fall, I say the 3 of us go to the night race.
Like it.
But so for my top 5, number 5, I actually have Daytona. I would love to go to Daytona 500. And I'm not diminishing that race at all. I just had Talladega a step ahead just because I feel like Talladega would be so much more of a party. Like you see all the videos that come out, especially from Talladega Boulevard in the infield, and the night before the race. that's the only reason I have Talladega a step ahead of Daytona. Number 3, I have Monza in Italy, the Formula One track. I would love to go there for a Formula One race. Seeing the Ferrari fans lose their shit would be so much fun. The fastest track on the circuit for them. I'd just be ridiculous to see F1 cars fly around that. Number 2, I have Spa, another F1 track. One of the most historic tracks, probably neck and neck with Monza and Monaco. I have Monaco just off the list here. That would probably be my honorable mention. The only reason I want to go there is just there's not a lot of passing, and I understand passing is not racing, and there's I understand, but like I want a little bit of excitement. I feel like Monaco might be a touch too boring, but nonetheless, I would still fucking love to go there. I just have Spa step ahead. I just think watching cars fly up Eau Rouge and go through that quick left, right, left up the hill would be spectacular to see. My number 1, I have Le Mans or Le Mans. The 24 Hours of Le Mans has always been something on my bucket list. I want to go there. I want to go to the 24 Hours at Daytona. One of the probably the most historic track in the world, and just something I desperately want to get off my bucket list.
There's some good ones. Yeah, I mean, I think just like you guys, I also picked Dega and Daytona as one of my picks. I think that the Daytona 500, I mean, it's just an amazing way to start the year out, an amazing track, all the history and everything. Yeah. I think another one that has a lot of history behind it that I would love to go to is the Koch 600 in Charlotte. There's talk
Charlotte was
about
my honorable mention.
there's talk about them lowering the amount of miles per track and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
trying to keep the Daytona 500 and the Koch 600 intact, which I hope they do because I mean
Yeah.
it's a part of the draw for those tracks. Like I'm not going to go to the Koch 450, but I think one that I would really like to go to that is just a lot of chaos, like you had just talked about wanting to see, is Martinsville. I
Yeah.
would love to go there. I mean, I hope that Denny Hamlin doesn't win, but I would love to go there. And then I think Darlington night with the throwbacks and everything would really be great as my second. And then I think my first, I would want to go to Phoenix just because that's where the championship's at the last two years, right?
Yeah, and this year,
And
I really hope to God it's the last year they have it there because I'm over that fucking championship race.
I'm not a fan of the movement of the finish line, but I do like it that it's a little bit more controversy than Homestead because when you went to Homestead, everyone just kind of ran around, hoped to finish in front of the other guy.
Yeah. I will say I prefer Homestead to Phoenix, but my biggest complaint with Phoenix, I if they fix this, I would probably tolerate it a little bit more. Is I hate that they can cut the shit out the dog like you don't have to drive on the track. Like you go to Daytona and Talladega, like, oh, you can't go below this line. You go to road courses, you can't drive X amount off the track. But you go to Phoenix, so like, drive through pit lane for all I care. I don't give a shit. That's my biggest thing. Your other so I live 15 minutes from Charlotte. You let me know when you want to go. We took Hannah last year. That was her first ever NASCAR race. And
to the 600 or to like the Roval?
The 600.
Nice.
Yeah, not a good choice. You want to go to your first NASCAR race? Do not go to the 600.
Yeah, don't go to the 600.
Halfway through, Hannah looks at me and she goes, "Oh, is this almost over?" I was like, "Are you not having fun?" She goes, "No, I'm having a lot of fun." She's like, "I'm just getting a little tired." I was like,
"You're like, sweet."
I was like,
stage one just ended.
I was like, "We're halfway," and she goes, "Are you fucking serious?" I was like, "Yep." But the best part, well, and it also sucked last year too because the package that NASCAR used to run sucked. And Larson was literally a lap ahead of the field, and there was zero entertainment. I don't think
the whole season.
I don't think there was any wrecks all year. All race. So it sucked. And every driver she picked, she's like, okay, that's who I'm rooting for. Like she picked Ross Chastain at first, and he blew an engine, and then she picked Matt Benedetto, and he like spun on pit road, and so then she's like, I guess I'm a Larson fan. But the best part of the night was like midway through the third stage. This girl was drinking out of a gallon bag the whole night. God only knows what she was drinking. This sums up NASCAR in like a perfect, just like little capsule. And I this is why I want to go to Talladega so bad, because I know it's like this girl times 1,000. And this guy is just walking back up the bleachers, and she reaches over and grabs him and pulls him down, and they just start making out. And the whole crowd in both of our sections stops watching the race and just focuses on them. And they were going at it for the last 150 laps. And I didn't watch the rest of the race. I just like, because every time you looked away, you heard her go, "Ooh." You're like, what happened? And then you realize it's the two people in front of you, like doing everything but fucking. And Martinsville
Gotta love it.
is only an hour away from Hannah's parents' house. So
yeah.
we can go there anytime and then just go back to the lake. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I think you guys both had great top fives. It's just, I think with me getting into Formula One a little bit more, I've seen these other tracks. I've seen what the fanfare is like there. I was like, I want to go there. And like I said, Le Mans has been on mine since I was a kid.
I didn't even think about those other tracks.
Yeah. I kind of figured, like, once you did your top five, I was like, wow, I'm going to seem like a fucking uptight douchebag. Like, oh, these are not racetracks. But I think that's everything we got. I'm going to go
around there, but I think we covered everything.
Yeah. I'm going to go enjoy married life a little bit. Other than that, yeah. Now we're just
go to sleep.
Yeah. I need to. I got to get ready for another triple overtime game tomorrow night.
Yeah, for real.
Other than that, we will see you guys next week. Make sure you go check out our TikTok, our Twitter. We're doing daily bets every day. Follow all three of. Excuse me. You don't need to yell into your mic like that, sir.
Dang. Usually I have to.
You do, but it didn't help you crack at the same exact time. So all yours. I was like, okay, got it. Yeah, follow all of us on Twitter, because I should have been tweeting a lot of that stuff off of our page last night. But yeah, other than that, we will see you guys next week. So thank you guys for checking us out.
Yep, thank you guys too.